Now time for Ask the Counselor with Pattison Professional Counseling and Mediation Center. On the phone, we were going to have Susan Page, but she was out drinking last night, and I guess she couldn't get up this morning. No, I'm just kidding. But we have Erin on the line with us. Good morning, Erin.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's too bad that Susan wasn't able to join us. I know something came up, and she isn't able to be here. So it's just me and you this morning for now, isn't it?
Yes.
I'm glad.
I'll try to live up.
Okay, you know what? I think you probably can. I'm just guessing, but probably can. We haven't talked for a couple of weeks, but hopefully everything is doing well at Pattison Professional.
Oh gosh, yes, everything's great over here.
Good, because you guys opened
really
up
well.
and you were always ready to go and got things going on. Before we get into our subject, and I've already prepped everybody that our subject today is pessimism. Let's kind of run down some of the services that you offer. First of all, you have two different locations. One is in Fort Walton, and the other one is in Crestview. Can you give us kind of an idea where they're located or what they're by, so maybe some landmarks?
Yeah, so the one in Fort Walton is on 7 Vine Avenue, and so we're kind of off of Hollywood and Vine. That's what I always say.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Right? It's kind of near the Dodge's Chicken that's in Fort Walton Beach.
We all know where that is.
Yeah. And then the one in Crestview is on 259 Oakdale Avenue East. And I'm not as familiar with Crestview, but I do know that it's over a bridge near downtown Crestview near the courthouse.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. That'll give people a pretty good idea on the area anyway.
Yes.
So, let's see. You have a website. What is that website?
Yes. So it is www.ppccfl.com.
Perfect. And the number is what? What numbers can they reach you at?
Well, you can call us at 850-682-1234, and you can press 1 for Crestview and 2 for Fort Walton Beach.
Well, you made that number pretty easy. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's nice.
1, 2, 3, 4.
You can't mess up on that one too bad.
I know.
All right. So a couple of your services. Let's go over those. Psychotherapy. I guess that's probably primarily a lot of your business, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just basically what we do. It's just a fancy word for being a therapist.
Oh, is it? Okay, I gotcha. Yeah. That's the common term for you therapists. That's what you say. Psychotherapy. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Psychotherapists. Yep. Then there's psychologists, psychiatrists. Yep.
So there's a difference, I suppose, but I don't know what it is.
Well, psychotherapists that we counsel, mm-hmm. We do talk therapy. Psychiatrists, they do medications. They're medical doctors. Psychologists, they counsel. Everybody counsels, but they do a lot of testing and assessments.
Ah, okay. So as a psychotherapist, do you evaluate people as you're talking to them?
Yes.
Oh,
I do.
So
not in my real life.
You're assessing me right now, aren't you?
All the time.
This guy's a freak. Okay.
My husband actually bought me a shirt once that says, "Keep talking, I'm diagnosing you."
Oh, great. Yeah, I always wonder about that with you counselors and therapists. Think, do I dare talk to them or not? Because they might dime me out. I don't know.
I know. Whenever I'm at like a business function or a party, I try for a long time not to tell people what I do for a living, because then as soon as I tell people, they start to change the way they talk to me.
Probably. And you could always hand them a card and say, we need to talk. Get some business that way. All right. So I know that your specialty is really with children, isn't it?
Yes, I do a lot with children, ADHD, behavior modification skills. That's definitely what my specialty is. But I do deal with everybody with anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder. Really, I can do anything that you would need, but I do get a lot of the children in the practice. Me and Julie are the main go-tos for the children in the practice.
Now, Julie, if I'm not mistaken, that's right. She's kind of new to your practice, isn't she?
She is. She is such a wonderful welcome to our practice. While we do have other counselors in our practice who do take children, it's not like their specialty. Like Julie, that's all she does. Is she will only see children because she's so good with them.
Oh, that's nice. I know you love kids. We all love kids. And
Yes.
and your assessments or with your therapy with the children, I think we talked about this once before, but it's worth talking about again because there's oftentimes you hear from parents and others that these kids are just on too much of this medication for their ADHD, and I forget Ritalin. Is it Ritalin? One of them?
Well, there's lots of different types. There's Ritalin, Adderall, Vyvanse, Concerta. There's so
Okay.
many types.
But a lot of them, and they'll say, that's just not necessary. But we talked before, and sometimes it is necessary.
Oh yeah. So if you want to ever get your child off of medication, you have to get them on medication first because I can get your child off of it, but it's going to take years and it's going to take practice and it's going to take work. I have ADHD and I have been unmedicated for, God, how old am I? I've been unmedicated now for 20 years.
Wow.
And that's only because I did behavior modification therapy and I implemented those skills for about 6 years. But that was when it was brand new and I have worked at it. I wouldn't say I mastered it. That's not, I don't think that highly of myself, but I definitely have it down to kind of an art. And I go to a lot of trainings. And if parents follow through with the steps that I give them, we can get your child to the point where they are able to manage these behaviors and they are able to wean off these medications.
Well, for those that may not know what ADHD is, exactly what is that?
So ADHD, it's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. A lot of people will say, well, I have only ADD. Well, ADD doesn't exist. It's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and there's 3 different types. You can have an inattentive type, and you can have a hyperactive type, or you can have combined type. So just because your child may not be hyperactive does not mean that they do not have ADHD. It's when your child is unable to stay focused, or they're impulsive, or they're not able to control their moods or regulate their behaviors. And it has to be evident in at least 2 out of 3 settings. So let's say they go to school, they go to karate, or they go to dance, and they go to home. So let's say they're great at home, but in school and at dance, they cannot focus. That can be a sign of ADHD. Or let's say at home they cannot focus and at school they cannot focus, but at karate they're great. That can still be a sign of ADHD. It's just that karate, the teacher has figured out a way to really hone their behaviors, or they just really like karate. So they're going to hyper focus on that.
Oh, okay. So even people or kids with ADHD, if it's something they really enjoy, they can focus on. But other things that if they don't have interest in something, they can't force themselves to be focused on it. Is that it?
Correct.
Oh,
Correct.
okay.
So just because you have ADHD does not mean that you cannot focus on something. For example, I remember when I was in college, I one time made a calendar because I was like, I'm going to get organized and I'm going to get my life in order. And that was something that I was passionate about and I was going to do it. So the first thing I needed to do was create a calendar. This was before like Ross was popular and TJ Maxx was a thing.
Yeah.
And I created a calendar on my computer to the year 2367. That's how crazy it went. Like I'm even going to be alive that long, right? But that's how hyper focused I got on it. And people with ADHD, it doesn't matter if it's beneficial. They can hyper focus on anything that they're passionate about. It's just a matter of getting that hyper focus on what needs to be focused on.
So what does the medication actually do? It helps them stay focused on things that even though they don't have interest in it, they can force themselves to be focused on, like school, like you're talking about, or anything else
Correct.
they might be involved in. So that somehow, whatever that medication does, it helps them focus.
Yeah, so I'm not a medical doctor, so I honestly don't know like the science and the chemistry behind the medication.
Right.
But I can give you a layman's information about it.
Okay.
So basically, everybody who does not have ADHD, we have a baseline. where we can function with the world. We can focus when we need to focus. We can go off when we need to go off. People with ADHD are never at that baseline that the rest of the world is at. They are well below that baseline. So what the medication does is it does not just make you focus, it puts you at the baseline so that you're at the level playing field with everybody else. If you're not even at a baseline, I can't even start to instruct you on how to be aware of your behaviors or how to focus on this rather than that. That is why medication is so important. You've got to be at a good baseline before I can even start you there. It's kind of like having ADHD is kind of like trying to build on that is like trying to build a bridge without any scaffolding, rebar support. It's like trying to just throw cement in the air and hoping that it sticks.
Okay.
It's not going to happen.
I gotcha. Yeah, that sounds pretty crazy. But now with the medication, and it helps you focus, is that when they start to focus, when your patients start to focus, then you're able to teach them how to stay focused and eventually get off the medication and still be able to focus. Is that the idea?
Yeah, I have done that before. And like I said, I did that. My sister and I both have ADHD and neither of us take medication for it. I have several clients who have had ADHD or still, you never don't have ADHD. You just learn how to manage it.
Sometimes I guess everybody probably wonders if they have that at some point in time, because sometimes it's hard to focus on something you're not that interested in, but you have to do it. So
correct. So if you're able to focus on something, even if you're not interested in it, and you're able to get it done within a reasonable amount of time, chances are you don't have ADHD. But if you just cannot get something done within a reasonable amount of time without some type of behavioral or emotional reaction, then that could be a sign that you have ADHD.
Would somebody, if let's just say, for example, they get angry about something, and all of a sudden they can focus and they can do whatever it is that they were supposed to do, and they didn't do it. If they got angry and they can focus, because I've seen some people, if they get angry, I'm going to speak on the military, that if you'd on them to get something done, and then you make them kind of mad at you, then they get it done pretty easily. But before that, they couldn't do it. I mean, is that possibly something like ADHD?
Well, sometimes what you're talking about is if they're angry and they kind of want to like prove you wrong. So that could just be that those people, and I don't know that exact example, but if I'm just guessing, it could be that those people, maybe they didn't care about doing it, and then you pissed them off and you got them angry, and they're like, well, screw this guy. I'm going to prove to him that I can do it. And, sometimes children and adults can do that with ADHD, but sometimes they can't. And then that just makes them even more angry. Oh. They lash out. They'll hit people. They'll break things. They'll throw things in the air. They'll stomp off because they don't know how to articulate that they don't understand, or that because their lack of concentration is also they just don't get it because they're not focusing on the lesson. So they don't know how to do it.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel better. I wasn't getting on people because they had some kind of issue. You just got my conscience cleared. Thank you very much on that end.
You're welcome.
Is there a large amount? Because, again, when you hear people talk, it's like, oh, it seems like more kids have ADHD than they did before. Or do you think it's just because you can recognize it now and they didn't recognize it before?
Oh, absolutely. So we recognize. So, what's interesting? So we've had the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for decades, since the 50s, but I actually just purchased the original one that was ever created, and it's 137 pages. The ones we have now, I don't even know how big it is. I think it's over 1,000 pages. Oh. But we understand mental health more now than we did even a decade ago. We had a different diagnostic and statistical manual even a decade ago. So we are understanding more and more every day. When I was a child, we didn't really understand ADHD very much. And we just thought, well, that's just a troubled kid. Well, they're a troubled kid because they're not understood. So they're going to act out because they don't understand what's going on in themselves. So yes, I agree. I do think that ADHD is more prevalent now because we recognize it more. And
Wondering.
we as parents, like me speaking of myself as an almost 40-year-old, as a parent, I lived the experience. So I see it. When I see it in my child, I think, okay, I see that. I went through that. I'm going to help you through it. And we're not going to try to just make you be better. We're going to work on it together.
So it sounds to me like it's good if you diagnose this in a child when they're young, or a person when they're very young as a child, so you can help
Yes.
them get through this. And so when they get to be an adult, they'll be able to function much better as far as working and focusing on their life, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, we can diagnose this as young as age 4. So if you start seeing your child at age 2 or 3 having these behaviors, that I mean, you're welcome to bring them to me, and I can help you with some parenting styles, but we don't diagnose this until they're at least age 4.
I see. And for parents that have young kids like that, what would be symptoms at that age? Let's just say 4, because they're pretty young. What symptoms
Mm-hmm.
would you be looking for just to make sure that your child doesn't have this?
So all children want to play,
Right.
but children will also be able to sit still for about 15 to 20 minutes, sometimes even 30 minutes at a time. You should be able to sit still. If your child cannot sit still for at least 15 minutes and like read a story or practice writing their name, then that could be a sign. And I don't mean 15 minutes sitting still watching TV, because we can all sit still watching TV. That's no problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're talking about like, okay, let's figure out how to write your name or anything
Mm-hmm.
else. That's a good example. But and they're like, what? After a couple of minutes, they're like, I can't do this, and I don't want to participate anymore.
Yeah, usually they'll get frustrated, but if you can redirect that frustration and reassure them that they're doing okay, every child's going to get frustrated. Nobody likes to fail, but children with ADHD, when they get frustrated, they get inconsolable to the point where because they don't know, their mind is going so fast that they don't know how to articulate how quickly their thought process is, and they just get mad because you don't understand. Because in their head, they've already told you why they're upset, but they haven't actually verbalized it.
Oh,
So they're mad at you that you don't understand what they're talking about.
oh, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. They don't verbalize it; they just act out. Very
Yes.
interesting. Well, you have a very interesting job, Erin, as far as with the children being able to recognize all of that. And I know that earlier we had talked about pessimism. We haven't really delved
Yes.
into that very much yet. So the reason I bring that up is there was an article somewhat about pessimism and the way that this virus has made people very pessimistic. And I'm sure it's all encompassing as far as employment goes and as far as being able to get out and do things. And now with the election, I think the election has probably been something that has got people pessimistic about things. But have you seen an increase in pessimism in your clients? Well, in your case, maybe patients.
I definitely have. And one of the biggest things I find myself saying multiple times a day is you have no idea how differently your day would go if you woke up and just planned on being happy. People just they don't even realize it, but when they wake up, they just plan to be miserable. If you would just wake up and just plan to be happy and not be miserable, pessimistic, your day would go better. If you wake up and let's say you wake up, your alarm goes off. Okay, I woke up today. This is a great day. I didn't die in my sleep. Let's go there.
Let's talk to the people my age. That's always a good thing. Okay, keep going. You got my ears.
Like, just be thankful. The mind is a very powerful thing. You know, science says that we only use 10% of our brain, and why are we going to waste it on being negative? I hate being negative because there's no point to it. It's just a waste of my time. So I wake up every day. It doesn't matter if my child is screaming at me, my 3-year-old is screaming at me, telling me that I didn't do her hair correctly. I still choose to be happy because at least I have a child who is screaming at me when so many others can't.
Well, that's very true. That's a good point. It's a very good point. And I agree with you, though. Getting up in the morning just being happy because you're alive and it's a good day and everything's, I mean, you're not dying or anything. That's always a good thing, I believe. And as a matter of fact, my wife sometimes will ask me, why are you so happy in the morning? I don't know. I feel good in the morning when I wake up, and once I'm awake, I feel great. I do. And then, of course, now this radio station, we do talk about a lot of negative things, but yet still shouldn't get yourself down. There are things that are happening in the world that are not the greatest, but you shouldn't let it bring you down every hour of every day.
Yeah, and I also tell people, like, look, if your guy didn't win, don't let that devastate you. Think about 4 years ago. Think about 8 years ago, 12 years ago. You had a guy in office who you didn't like either. And how much did that affect you? Yeah, it probably affected you. But did it affect you as much as you really thought it was going to affect you? In all reality, the state holds the power, really. And in Florida, at least, the guy that's in office should be a guy that you like if the guy that's in the presidential office didn't win.
Right.
So,
right.
Just think of the positives. If you're going to only dwell on the negatives, you're going to be a miserable human being, and you're going to be miserable to be around, and you're going to have nobody that wants to be around you. But if you're a happy person, people are going to come to you. I tell people all the time, have you ever ridden on an airplane? Yes or no? Yes? Okay. What about the safety spiel? If the air cabin loses pressure, they're going to deploy oxygen masks. What do they say? Put a mask on yourself before attempting to help others. Why do they say that? Because you are no use to anybody else if you are dying while trying to put the mask on everybody else. Everybody comes and goes. Mothers, fathers, parents, sisters, brothers, nieces, nephews, uncles, family, friends, husbands, wives, children. They come and go in our lives.
Right.
Not because they die, but because we teach them to flourish and that they don't need to use us anymore, or they don't need us. They don't depend on us anymore. And that's okay. In the end of the day, you are who you have. And don't you want to be happy? Don't you want your company to make you smile?
Good point. That is a very good point. Not only that, who wants to go through life being miserable?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know who, but I sure do know there are a lot of people that do that.
Yeah.
Because they try to find joy in other people. But if you live for finding joy in other people, you're going to have a miserable existence because other people are not going to be around sometimes. You cannot constantly interact with people 24/7. You're going to be alone with your thoughts at some point.
Mm-hmm. So keeping positive thoughts and trying to be happy yourself. I think it's attitude. I guess it comes down to attitude is what I'm hearing.
Yes, you choose happiness or you choose to not be happy. It's just basic. It just comes down to that. Choose happiness, even if something comes at you that is not a good thing. Like say somebody in your family is diagnosed with cancer. Choose happiness because you live in America where not only do you get to have access to amazing medical science, but you also can choose which doctor you're going to go to. You also don't have to wait on a list because you get to choose which doctor you go to. Some countries, they have the nationalized medicine and the government chooses when you get to be seen. We don't have that in America. Be happy. Yeah, it sucks that your family member has cancer, but you can choose to think of it in a good way, or you can just dwell on the negative, and then you're not going to be a help to anybody.
I can see your point on that. I can see your point on that a lot. And being positive, and that's sort of it. In that circumstance, it would be very hard, but I'm sure that people have done that in the past. Sometimes that I've seen when that scenario, I've seen people around them just kind of be happy that they had lived that long, or the fact that they're still with them and they've enjoyed them and the blessings they've had in their lifetime with that individual. And, I guess appreciating the time that you did have. I guess that's pretty much the bottom line, even though it's a horrible thing to have to deal with. But I see your point. And because, oftentimes when somebody passes away, Back in the day, this is about a funeral, but now people have taken it to this is a celebration of life. So you look at it two different ways.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
That's interesting. So with pessimism, election-wise, there's a lot of that. A lot of us are kind of pessimistic about the election. There's no doubt about that. But as far as the virus, it's affected a lot of families, I'm sure, and children, and like we've talked about before, kids being in school. Does that create a lot of pessimism, like in families, because their situation had changed a lot because of the virus impact?
Yeah, I mean, I see that in my practice. I see that in my daily life. I see that in the news. People are living in fear. Not so much here, which is great, but you still have that small pocket that do here in this area. And when I see that, I think, you can't let something like that make you, hijack you. You can't let something like that hold you hostage. If that's the case, then you are going to live a sad life because you are in control of your life, and you know that you can wear a mask if you want to. You can order stuff online if you want to. You can work remotely. You can send your children to school remotely. There's steps you can take if you feel the need. However, unless you have an underlying condition, it's been proven that this virus, you can get through it. There have been some effects, but it's still, you can get through it. And there's so many amazing things that are happening right now. There are vaccinations going out right now. There is, I think Amazon is going to be getting in on the distributing vaccines now. I mean, that's what I just heard. I don't know what's true about it.
You have Publix. They've gotten involved with it as well. Public stores are administering the vaccines. So
I know, and I think I also heard CVS is going to be getting in on it too. Publix has already started. Like, they've already got where you can register for an appointment.
Yes.
So, I mean, hope is coming and hope is there. You just have to choose to see it.
Yeah, but I have heard people say to me that, well, if I get the virus, I'm going to die. I mean, that's their attitude. If I get it, I'm going to die, and it scares them. But they don't have the optimistic view of, if I catch it, I can beat it. They got the view
of course they're going to think that they're going to die. That's what the media's been telling us for a year. Yeah. Well, not even a year, because a year ago, remember, the mainstream media was telling us that the president was xenophobic for doing a travel ban.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, so what has it been, 10 months? The media has been telling us that we're going to die from this virus. We're not going to die. Granted, some people are going to die. Some people die from illness every day.
Yes. Good.
You cannot prevent that.
But some people are taking it to heart when they listen to that. They've taken it to heart and say, well, if I get it, I'm going to die. And so that's the pessimistic side of it that's scary, really, because they've already given up.
Well, let me ask you this. Everybody who's listening who thinks they're going to die from COVID, do you think you're going to die from flu? Because you can. That doesn't mean that you're going to. I
agree with you. But we're about out of time, Erin. So again, this is Erin Goodson from Pattison Professional Counseling and Mediation Center. And what is your website again, Erin?
It's www.ppccfl.com.
Perfect. And you go to that website and find out what they're all about. Erin, thank you so much for coming on with us today.
You're welcome. Choose to be happy.
Absolutely. Take care, and we'll talk to you in 2 weeks.